Good evening once again, everyone. We're back here on Lone Oak Farm. I think this is the 8th episode that I'm trying to record here. And just like last time, maybe we could take a look at the map and some real life pictures to kind of get an idea of what is around the area for Lone Oak Farms. This here is, I think we covered this last time. We're kind of on the eastern side of the map, north and east, where we visit about this. There's, a Bullet Bill chose to put a shop, a dealership in here for Case IH. In real life, as we saw in the picture, it's just a bare lot, if you will, and not a very good looking one at that. So just to the east here, there's this field up in here, just like there is in real life. But let's go to the pictures. That's the sign. This is kind of looking down the road now to the south, and you'll see that is pretty much what this looks like. We'd kind of be down at this angle here. And I know he tried to match as best he could at least the color of some of the buildings, that we would see along here. And placement of trees, he also put in the map this tree right here. There's kind of that white barn up there. So we'll just kind of fast forward the pictures here. This is right turning and looking off to the north, if you will. And up here you see kind of these short little trees. What that is in real life is a Christmas tree plantation. And he chose to leave up there as kind of just an arable field. But I know when I played this map on the server, that'd be this field up here. What I did just for kicks was I planted it full of poplars. So at least it was somewhat similar, I guess, to what it had in there. Occasionally you'll see a farm that gets a whole bunch of trees put on it up in the area, but for the existing grass seed farmers, they're honestly kind of a pain in the neck, as the chemical contingent for trees versus what is used on grass seed is a little bit different. And at the road level, when you're down here, it still appears you could see a little of Mount Hood over here. Well, in real life, you can't. But again, poetic license, it's just knowing that it's there or kind of in that area that we can see it. So let's go back to the pictures here. There's just one more to the north. There was the Sunnyview Nurseries up in this area up here, not the BGA Cell Point combo, if you will. Oh, and I would point out here, see those big rocks? The reason we have them there is they came out of the field and they're all over the place. This particular person just chose to set them down there, kind of as decorative for his business. But yeah, the fields are full of rocks and people need a place to put them. Now, here I believe I've driven up the road or down the road. We're a little bit south more in the map. The Manning's dealership would have been up here. That's where the nursery was in real life. Here's that small tree plantation. So if we go on the map, it is this road. Well, it's a little bit further yet up here. This road right here. And I think I got out here and we're kind of looking off over this way in the picture. That's kind of what we're looking at here. That's what it looks like in real life. So I'll go back to the map here. One thing I added to the map that wasn't in there, and I know Bullet Bill told me at one point he wanted to add it in, but for whatever reason it just didn't get added in. See this blinking light? I'm kind of proud of that blinking light. I cut a model up in Blender to kind of produce this. It's really just the train lights, and so I just cobbled together something in the model and put two of the train lights back to back, and I found some of the coronas for the blinking light off of some equipment, I'm sure, threw those in there, And it's a hazard light. You know, when you're traveling up and down this road, the Cascade Highway, it's yellow. It isn't intended for you to stop here, so they just put it yellow as a cautionary measure. But on the perpendicular road coming in here, I think it's Ritchie's Road, don't recall exactly, it's supposed to be red because there is a stop sign here, you're supposed to stop. What I've been told is years ago, you know, if you zoom out a little bit on this, the road has a slight bend. I guess you can kind of see it there at the top. You know, it isn't perfectly straight, and from what I understand, there once was an accident, or maybe there's been several accidents at the top of this hill as a driver would come up, or from different angles, maybe coming from the north, and would all of a sudden end up in the other guy's lane. So that's kind of the genesis of how they put in this caution light. You don't always see those, but usually on these country roads where there is a stop sign, there pretty much always is also a flashing light, such as this in the intersection, just to encourage people to stop. Maybe I have another picture of it. Kind of looks a little wonky. I did the best I could with my limited knowledge of Blender, but it sure could have been a whole lot better. And maybe I have a picture of it here. We'll see if, yeah, there it is. Well, yeah, shoot, I don't know. I don't know how close to real life that is. See, I think what I did is I climbed up for this picture here on this embankment into the field to take a picture kind of sitting this way to get that light in it. And yeah, I caught it off the blink. This, I think, is looking across the road. So if we go to our map, I mean, kind of down on that swale, just looking this way here, you see this little trailer house kind of down in there. Bullet Bill got that matched up perfectly. That's kind of the direction we're looking here for this particular picture. Looks like I took a couple of them. This is looking east on that same road. And you can kind of see these trees heading up to this person's house up here and lining their driveway, of course. You see the same thing in the map. You know, as you would look up the road, there's that string of trees going up to this guy's house, and that's kind of the edge of the map right up there. And that's exactly how it is in real life. And you know, well, maybe just go up here right now. The edge of the map is right here. We can kind of see that. Even though Bullet Bill does stellar work in terms of matching the textures and everything, we can still see that that's kind of the edge of the map. He also took the pains to put some buildings up here, because up here, as you see, the road kind of continues to the south. It takes a hard, sharp bend. So he literally stacked some buildings up there because that is where there's another farm. I think it's a Ritchie's farm up there. And I believe this past summer, or maybe it was a summer before, they had a fire in their grass seed cleaner. So one of these buildings burnt down or had a fire. I don't know if it was totally destroyed, but it was in their grass seed cleaner. Kind of a tragic sort of deal. And I almost think someone lost their life, but don't recall exactly. Let me go back to the pictures here. Again, that's looking due east. This is another one looking south at that same intersection. And we're pretty soon we're going to drive right along this road here. You know, basically the first time I came out here to take pictures, I kind of just drove around the area, you know, to get some of these as reference pictures for Bullet Bill. Hmm. You know, it's been a little while since I've looked at these. Oh, I know where this is. Okay, so we are where that little taco shack would be sitting. Over here, out of frame, is the lone oak tree. And so this is kind of looking south, about where that would be. Let's just go take a peek at it here. So now we would be zooming. We've already driven down here. I maybe should have stopped a few other places. Now here's an area I added a placeable flat so I could put something in there. I almost think it was a whiskey distillery. I don't recall exactly. Came up this ravine, and in real life, there is kind of this little pull out here. So this particular picture that we were just looking at is kind of taken right about here, I believe, give or take. Let's take a look at it. Something like that. That I believe is in that location. And this is kind of a picture of Bullet Bill's sense of humor. He put in a taco truck, which incidentally isn't that far off from reality. I can't say I've ever seen one sitting there in real life, but what I do know is we do have a lot of Hispanic people from Mexico in the area, and it is not uncommon at all to see taco trucks traveling various areas around here for the Hispanic population and anybody else, that wants to purchase a taco. So, not a bad addition at all, and yeah, closed away on Giants forum, nagging map makers. I think this was, yeah, Taco Farmer. I think that's somebody that was on the forum, Giants forum, as he puts on here, nagging map makers. I think this is kind of tongue in cheek and in a friendly spirit. But apparently, this particular user enjoys heckling map makers or other modders um, for whatever details. I can't say I've ever encountered it, but kind of a humorous addition to the map to put that in there. Maybe I have a couple other pictures. Yeah, this is definitely the location. So the taco truck in game would be kind of sitting over here. There's the lone oak tree, kind of off to the west. So I think in game we kind of know what this is. I think there's a pond actually in there, and there's a stream that kind of runs back through there. This is some property my uncle's lease. So they got this whole hillside here that they lease, including this front part. It was a number of years ago. I visited him in the summer and actually got to combine in this particular field, which was kind of fun. So it's the stuff off kind of in the distance here if we look at it kind of from this angle. And from here we need to bump up the clip distance on that so we could see the tree. There's a lone oak tree. Here's kind of the hillside, if you will. And I'd have to look at a satellite map. I'm not even sure where all this water originates. If it comes kind of from the hill back here, or just if it's a spring, maybe straight out of the hillside for all I know. All I know is it's made for some challenges in working on this particular piece of real estate, with it being a strange shape. And I do know in game, Courseplay is not a huge fan of this particular field, just in case anybody is interested. So you might want to bust it into a couple pieces if you ever own that particular field. So let me see if there's any others of the area. This is looking due east across the road from where the taco stand would be. So we could swing around kind of from here. And I think that's about a representation of it, if you will. Maybe a little bit further east or south. When I take the picture east, this is kind of north a little bit. I don't know what it is here in real life. I don't think there's a farm. Maybe there's a small little ranch in there. I'm really not sure off the top of my head, but I know in game, this is where Bullet Bill chose to put this is for wool. So you would sell your wool over here. So that's kind of where he chose to put that. And I believe you could sell manure here maybe also. Yeah, manure sell point. So in real life, I don't think they would take very kindly if you dropped off a load of manure to put it there, but in game, that's how this is used. And I would say, I mean, he has tried to match up the houses as best he could, with what is really there and with whatever crummy picture I've happened to give him to work with. he has tried to duplicate. So this now is a little bit further down the road. The last picture we saw was clear down over here, so now we're kind of getting to the southern edge of the map, if not past it. So here we would just kind of come up here. This whole area in real life does not exist. Uh, we can't really see it. It's off the road. This is called State Street that butts in here. And I think where I'm taking the pictures, this picture here, is kind of at the top of the hill. So that part I don't think is hardly on the map. Like if we go here, it'd be at the top of the hill here. So, which I don't believe is on the map at all. So it'd be looking down from here, kind of from here, if you will. Well, in real life, at the top of this hill is kind of an old farmstead, and this is just open field down here, kind of like we saw in the picture. There is no sale point of root crop or what have you. But what there is over here in real life is a hazelnut orchard. And I think Bullet Bill chose to leave that as kind of an arable location, although we can't farm, obviously, on this section of the map anyhow. But this is kind of just looking down. What we would see in real life is this. Here's the hazelnut trees, obviously devoid of any leaves given the time of year. Oh, and you know what? I was mistaken. I thought this was just an open field. I forgot. There is some hazelnut trees over here. But in game, obviously, there's a root cell place here and there, and then there's a place to put some placeables and another grain selling point. So just kind of showing some of the differences, game versus reality. And I don't know if I'm just boring everybody to tears. I'll maybe stop at here and kind of head in game. I'll write down what picture number we're on so we can come back to here. I've already chewed up nearly 20 minutes of video, it appears, on this. So hopefully it's of interest to people just to kind of get see a picture of the area. And it'd sure be nice if I had, and I got quite a library of pictures, but not necessarily of all these locations at other times of year. A lot of times the Google Maps does about as good as anybody in terms of showing at different times of year kind of how it looks on the ground. So we'll head back in game here. If you recall, we just finished chisel plowing our field, and so it's probably still sitting out there. Yes, here's the truck here that has our rocks in it that we picked up. There's the chisel plow, and maybe I could show something on that. This I mentioned. This is somewhat realistic. This chisel plow, these large shanks, and maybe I'll show one other thing before getting back in the game here, just for kicks. I'll go to another web browser. When I worked on the farm, in later years, they started purchasing the larger four-wheel drive articulated tractors. But when I worked there for many, many years, the largest tractor that they had was a 4630 John Deere, and it looked something similar to this. I would say the duals that they had weren't quite as wide spaced, between the tires, but it definitely had duals. And I know as a kid, I was just fascinated with this tractor. It was the biggest thing I thought I'd ever seen. I thought it could literally pull a mountain. And, then later years when I actually drove it and I enjoyed driving it, it was a lot of fun, spent a lot of time in it in the fields. But it wasn't quite as powerful or invincible as I ever thought it was. Nevertheless, it was a tool they had on the farm, and to my knowledge, I think this was a tractor produced in the latter 70s, maybe early 80s. I don't recall exactly. I think they still have it and they use it on the farm to this day. The farm also had two 4020s, and again, these pictures I'm showing here, they're not my pictures. I just pulled them randomly off the internet. But we had up there two 4020 John Deere's. One of them at least had a front loader. One had a power shifter transmission, the other didn't. I'm not sure what you'd call it, maybe more standard transmission. I understand the 4020 John Deere was a very popular tractor back in the day. It was a tractor that wasn't too big and wasn't too small, for most jobs a lot of farmers had around the place. So up on Lone Oak, they had two of them. I don't know if they still have them. They may have one of them. They may have none of them now. I don't know. But they were very heavily used. And and in terms of pulling, the chisel plow in game probably would have used the 4630 for that. And I'll show something here on that in a moment. I think maybe I have that over here. Nope, that's a combine. This is, I'll just mention this. This was a John Deere 6602 combine. It really, when John Deere produced it in the factory, it was just a John Deere 6600. And John Deere didn't put you'll notice this thing is kind of tilted over a little bit for the hillside. John Deere didn't put the hillside on there. They farmed that out to another manufacturer kind of up in the Spokane, Washington area, Eastern Washington. Up there is a Palouse, so they needed a lot of hillside farming equipment. Well, some of those found their way down into Oregon. We have some steep hills here too, and on the farm we had a 6602 hillside. It would level up to 45% grade, so you could really get that thing bent over. Here it's only partially tilted over for the contour of the hill. Now this has a wheat header. The one we had on the farm also had a wheat header, but we also, well, actually for the 6602 for a number of years, the wheat header and the grassy pickup belt reel were all one and the same. They would take this reel off, and then they would mount a pickup belt kind of right here on the front of the header. So we had one of those, and there was two other machines typically when I was up there. Side Hill 6600, which is a similar size machine, just couldn't level quite as much, and then an 8820. I don't have a picture of that. But here's kind of what their chisel plow looked like. I don't know. This appears to be an international. I don't know that theirs was an international. All I know is it looked very similar to this with some larger, heavy shanks, but it wasn't very wide. And I think part of the reason for that is this pulled pretty hard, when you set it into the ground for the size tractors that they had. And these monster shanks could really pull out the rock too, pulling it over the ground. And then in behind this, which we'll see a little bit in game, they had, I think I mentioned last episode, something called a vibrishank. I believe it looks somewhat like this. It was kind of a bat wing affair, if you will, or however you say that, where it had wings that you could lower down. I believe the shanks were a little bit different. They didn't have, I don't know what the correct terminology is for this type of shank. The shanks looked more kind of like this, just not nearly as heavy. They were more shallow digging, more of them on there, so it didn't pull quite as hard. Even though it looks larger and it's wider, it didn't pull near as hard because it didn't dig as deep. So that's some of the equipment we had in real life, and then obviously as we look at this in game, they didn't have a New Holland, but I'm gonna get this off the field, and we'll go find the Vogelnut cultivator and get him going on the field. I kind of commented on this in the last episode. The Giants really didn't make a huge number of options in terms of things you could do in the field. So you could either plow, cultivate, or plant. They have a roller, but you don't really use the roller to do anything that changes the field substantively. So you really have only those two choices. What I've taken to doing, because a lot of times there's more than one field operation, I realize there's some operators that have no-till or what have you, and you could do that here. I think in the area years ago they tried some no-till. I don't know that in this region of the world for growing grass seed that it's the most effective way. Maybe someone would know better that could comment on that. I just know my uncles haven't typically used that farming practice. they've tended to fully rip up their fields when they plant something else. So this tractor is actually probably overpowered for this Vogelnut, but that's alright. It's what we have, so we'll get him going. And I believe, yep, he's still going to be digging a few rocks, so we're going to keep our rock picking trailer out there. Oh dear. I got stuck on something. Shame on me. That wouldn't have been good on the building. But I would say this. Trying to drive from the backwards. Dear, dear, oh dear. I think I need to have my license revoked. Well, this is a fine set of affairs to be in. I can't even get it back into the building here now. Maybe if I scrape it along, there we go. Would never do that in real life, but that's probably also part of the reason why my uncles don't store any of their tillage equipment inside of a building. It's all stored kind of on the outside, sort of like this over here. Maybe it isn't the best for it, I don't know. But that's kind of what they've done. It just finds its place outside, and you back up to it outside, and there's no building to interfere with it. So I'm going to get him going here. This is a little narrower, so I suspect it's going to take quite a bit longer to work over the field. Maybe I'll get him hired. Hopefully he's smart enough to go around the fences. I suppose I could put him on a course play. There we go. Boy, I'm doing some video streaming with Farm Sim 15, and I look at this here, and this is just beautiful. There's a lot that improved over time in newer versions of the game. All 15 still stands on its own. And I gotta say, you look at later versions of the game, and again, I don't mean this as a complaint, but sometimes the term cartoony comes to mind. This just looks like it fits. So maybe sometimes that's why I kind of referred back to these older versions. Okay, I think you're gonna find tractor. Yep, that's a hard object up there. Maybe what I need to do is just take the outer round myself. Of course, everybody knows I'm not the best driver with keyboard steering. We can make a go of it and head on around. This tractor shouldn't have any difficulty pulling this hill up here. I think it has enough juice under the hood. It should be able to stand on its head if we wanted it to. I know I've mentioned before, I think I would choose to pull more rocks out of the ground than I can right now, but I keep forgetting to change my input binding to change that. I mean, the typical input binding for the rock spawn mod was Alt-R, and it's interfering with my recording software, so I don't really want to attempt changing it at the moment. I know I changed it in Farm Sim 15, but I'll have to wait till I get out before doing it in here. Check up here, make sure, phew, the tree is still there. Kind of half worried that it's going to choose to disappear again, because I still can't figure out just where it went. But back on the tillage, you know, I don't know how other players do it. Maybe running the chisel plow would be enough, and they would choose to come right in with the planter, maybe. You know, would get tired of it. I don't get very tired easily of this game, so, you know, I'm coming in here and doing another field operation. It does absolutely nothing for me, to the best of my knowledge. You could You could plant right behind the plow if you wanted to. It would be just fine. But you wouldn't do that in real life. It'd be rougher than a cob. And so you'd want to smooth it out a little bit. So I'm choosing, the times I work the field, I generally, if I run the plow over it, I'm going to be running the cultivator over it. And in theory, and in real life, not only would you run the cultivator over it once, you might come back and do it several times. I know a number of years ago, maybe I'll turn on the GPS mod, so narrow that up. There we go. A number of years ago, I was cultivating, running a field cultivator for them at one of their fields, and this then was with a large four-wheel drive tractor. It was a Ford, I believe, and so they had a really wide field cultivator, and I was doing a 100-acre, and I was able to cover the entire field 3 times during the day, and it was a long day. When I quit, it was, dark out, but the first 2 times, each time you do it, you go a different direction. So I think the first time I did the field one direction, then I did it a different direction, and the third time was yet another direction, and this time I lowered the shanks a little bit further so it dug in a bit more as I went along there. So 3 times, and I almost think they may have come in yet another time just to loosen up the soil and smooth it down the way they wanted it to be. So by all rights, I should be doing that even with this one here. The trouble is it becomes very hard to see where you're going because the texture doesn't change. I suppose you could see where it is if you chose to, like right now I'm going around and around. Oh, there's a rock. A big old round one. Not very realistic, but I appreciate the modder that gave it to me. I think it was Ben W 2011. Yeah, I don't remember. But maybe it could be done if I tried to do it another way in here. But I do also have the mod in here, the stubble cultivator. I don't know if anybody's heard of that mod before, but basically when you follow the combine, or it's the chopped straw mod, and if it detects that in the map and you have it on while you're cultivating, what it will do is it'll put the chopped straw texture over the top of your cultivating texture. So that means you're working it up, and just kind of like in real life, the first go of the cultivator probably isn't going to look too pretty. There's still going to be stubble sitting up on top, and it'll take a future pass to kind of incorporate that more into the soil. So just to have one more thing to do in the field, I've tended to use that. Oh, must be auto-saving. Apologies. I've tended to use that so that there's something else to do in the field. So I'll put it'll be the stubble cultivator. You'll see stubble showing up on the surface, and then I'll cultivate it yet a second time, and then the second time it pulverizes all that and it cultivates it under. So you got to try to find something to help enhance realism a little bit, give you a few more somethings to do in here. That's just kind of some of the things I've chosen to do. And I guess everybody's going to have their own style and way of playing. And maybe it's just something a modder has never tried to tinker with, different types of soil manipulation, if you will, depending on what kind of implement you're pulling. And maybe most, as a general rule, simply just don't care. Standard fare, and that's all right. So I think it looks like I'm already over half an hour of jabbering at you, so I think I'm going to call the episode there. Thank you everyone for listening and taking time to stop on by, and we'll see you all in the next one. Take care for now. Bye-bye.